Hey boys and girls, it's me, we're back. Tsufit here with Step into the Spotlight, a guide to getting noticed. Today we are on Chapter 4, Part 6. Chapter 4 is called Is This Thing On? And we are now on Chapter 6. Can you believe it? And there's so much more to go. The 30-second infomercial. This is a really important part of the book. In business, you'll need to write a lot of scripts. Speeches, presentations, seminars, but nothing is more important than the 30-second networking infomercial or just the 30-second infomercial pitch that you can do anywhere, in elevators, in whatever you want to call them. They're really important because it's a little mini show that you've got ready at all times if you happen to run into somebody that you want to pitch. And you never know when you're going to be called onto a stage. You never know when you would literally be in an elevator with someone, or you'll literally meet someone for just a few seconds, and you've got to be ready. Now, my credentials. Before I begin to spout out about infomercials, and there will be spouting out, let me briefly review for you my credentials on the subject. I have watched more than my fair share of TV commercials. I've been in them both on TV and in the cinema. I've studied the Cannes award-winning commercials. Okay, maybe studied is a little bit of a strong word, but I used to watch them. There was this neat little place called the Groening Board in Toronto where they used to have film festivals of commercials. So we'd eat this amazing cheesecake and watch these commercials. So if you're content with my qualifications, let's proceed. There are two different varieties of infomercials, the ones you do for a group audience and the ones you perform one-on-one, like when Bill Gates happens to get in the elevator that you're in. This section focuses on the group infomercial, the one where you do it for the big group. The Gates in the elevator situation, check out another part of the book. So a later part. So you're going to your Chamber of Commerce networking meeting to spread the word about your business. How do you put together your 30-second show? Well, first of all, number one, you got to figure out what you're selling. Number two, you got to observe who your audience is. Number three, you got to dig around for your story. Number four, you got to connect your story to what you're selling. And number five, you got to find a dynamic way of telling it off the air. If you miss any of these steps, you will find yourself quickly off the air. Many clients complain to me, Tsufit, I can't possibly tell them what I do in just 30 seconds. Let me tell you something. If you can't boil down what you do to 30 seconds, you're not going to be able to explain it to people in 30 minutes either. You know why? You don't really know what you do. My suggestion, go back to chapter 3, the one on branding, and figure it out before you continue. This is what Epictetus, how do you say it? Epictetus, Greek philosopher, said. If I'm butchering his name, comment below and tell me how you say it. First, learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. Blinks. Consider yourself lucky to have 30 whole seconds. Advertisers have now introduced a shorter commercial format. They're called blinks, literally. As a response to viewers tuning out before the full 30 seconds are done. Remember the running to the get some more chips during the commercials? The goal is to make them impossible to tune out. A little too brave new worldish for me, but I have no doubt that they will be effective. 30 seconds is a nice amount of time and definitely long enough. So let's map it out for you. First of all, you open with a dynamic, attention-grabbing statement. It can be provocative. It can be part of your story. But remember, start in the middle of the story, not at the beginning. And number two, present the problem that your product or your service addresses. When you advertise fire extinguishers, open with the fire. So says David Ogilvy. When you advertise fire extinguishers, open with the fire. Okay, so that was part 2. Number 3, tell us how your product or service solves the problem, or just make a claim and let them come to you for more information. Number 4, do steps 2 or 3 above or both in the form of a story. And 5, tell us your name, your company name, for the very first time about 2/3 of the way through the infomercial, or even later than that. Then number 6, give us one more enticing sentence related to what you said earlier. And 7, repeat your name and then end on an interesting tagline. Now, I know that was a lot of blah, 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 and you probably didn't get any of it. So let's see this in action, yes? Okay, another mortgage broker came to me seeking help with her infomercial. She told me that her clients were women in their mid-40s seeking debt consolidation. And they came to her because they felt frustrated, like they were drowning in debt. And we used their frustration and their discomfort as a starting point. And here's how we started. Here's the infomercial. It's 8:40 a.m. The alarm didn't go off and you're 10 minutes late for the big boardroom presentation. You rip open a pair of pantyhose and have a tug of war just to bring them up to your knees. But it says one size fits all. One size doesn't fit all. Not with pantyhose and definitely not with mortgages. I'm Jessica Blow and I'm a mortgage consultant. You can pick up a one size fits all mortgage at the bank, or you can let me shop for you and help you find the mortgage that fits you perfectly. Jessica Blow Mortgages, because one size never fits all. But bum. So that took about 30 seconds. Here's another version. Two things in life never seem to fit quite right: your pantyhose and your mortgage. Can't really help you with that pantyhose thing, but I can help you make sure that your mortgage doesn't bind, that it's not too tight, that it feels comfortable. I'm Jessica Blow. I'm a mortgage consultant, making life more comfortable, one mortgage at a time. So we identified what our clients are looking for, right? Breathing room. We found a visual that will keep them listening long enough to notice her. Now, she said that her clients were 40-year-old women. So we went with the pantyhose thing. But if, your clients are somebody else, you would do it differently. Here's another example of opening with the fire. Congratulations. Your marketing efforts have finally paid off. Bill Gates is flying in to meet you in the boardroom of your corporate head office. Only problem is your boardroom is your kitchen table. Do you wipe the spaghetti stains off the wall where the kids threw it last night, or do you call me, Jane Dane, and rent a fully furnished boardroom by the hour and still have enough money left over to pick up pizza for kids on the way home? Jane Dane, Metro Executive Suites. This is one that I wrote for my client who ran executive suites. She would rent out boardrooms by the week, by the month, by the day, by the hour. And she actually did this infomercial for years. And there was a marked difference in terms of people all of a sudden starting to get to know her. She said that she did this somewhere, and 8 out of 10 of the entrepreneurs at the moment asked for her brochure. That was back in the days that people had brochures. We don't have them anymore. Connect your story to what you're selling. In high school, I kept myself stocked with O. Henry bars by having a part-time job doing telephone market survey research. I learned a lot. One of the surveys was intended to find out whether people knew which TV commercial jingle went with which beer. We found out that people knew the jingle, but they often couldn't tell us which beer the jingle was for. So it's not just about getting noticed, right? It's about them wanting to buy your thing for the thing that they noticed, right? It's about associating one with the other. It's about what you want them to do as a result of noticing you. What marketers have forgot and need to remember real soon is that marketing is about selling stuff. So says Sergio Zyman, The End of Marketing as We Know It. Sergio Zyman, he's a former chief marketing officer for Coca-Cola, pulled the wildly popular Mean Joe Green commercials off the air because they weren't selling stuff, right? Having a great commercial does not guarantee great sales. You've got to connect the dots. An accountant came to me to critique his intros, which were kind of stale, just a bunch of information, which you can find in a book. And I sensed that he had a good sense of humor, but it just wasn't coming out. Boy, did I strike gold. This guy was hysterically funny. Now this guy gives me a run for my money at events where we're both speaking. I won't even sit beside him in the 30 seconds and that's the best compliment that I can pay a fellow speaker, because I don't want to pale in comparison, right? But as I told him recently, he mastered lesson 1, find and use your humor and put yourself in the story. He mastered that. But he missed lesson 2, which is connect it to what you're selling. So there's more work to be done there. He's funny and he's memorable, which in itself is a very, very good thing, and it puts you way ahead of everybody else. But if he really wants to turn that into money faster, if he really wants to turn that into client sessions and appointments, he'll have to use his humor and his story to connect, to make a point, to connect them to his business. And I'll give you an example of that. I call this the anecdotal yodel. One of my clients grew up in a 600-year-old farmhouse. These are all true, by the way. These are all actual people that, if you're in my circle, you'll see them at networking meetings, or at least back in the day when I used to go to networking meetings. She grew up in a 600-year-old farmhouse in the Swiss Alps. Cute little blonde kid, braids, the whole bit. She loved reading growing up, but she didn't have a lot of books, so she had to go down to the valley where the library was and borrow books from the village library. And in putting together her story for a 10-minute presentation she was doing, I suggested, you know what, wouldn't it be cute if we said that your favorite book was Heidi? And she said, Tsufit, it was. What a coincidence. You know why I said that? Because that was her name too. Her name was Heidi, still is. But she had never told her story. Can you imagine? She had never connected her story to her book production business. That's what she does for a living. She's a graphic designer. But one of the main things she does now is produce books. And we made the connection. Another client, again, true story. She was a motivational speaker, a business mentor. She had a great story. When she first arrived in Canada from Europe, barely in her 20s, barely speaking English. She was in her early 20s. She was invited to a cottage by the lake with a friend. And to make a long, very scary story short, she got stranded on a little island and decided that if help didn't come soon, she was going to swim across the lake for help. Halfway across the lake, she felt that she couldn't go on and she almost drowned, but she pushed on. Like, that's not enough. Welcome to igloo country. Not long afterwards, she had an encounter with a mama bear in the Yukon who hadn't yet had her afternoon snack. Great story, very compelling, and yet she was trying to sell her mentoring without connecting it to her story. So I suggested she leverage her story by using it in her infomercials and by giving speeches and writing articles on how to navigate rough waters, how to survive. She could have called it Survivor, or 10 lessons I learned from an angry mama bear and how to apply them to your business. Everyone has a story and hers were true. Why would she not use them? Tell your story well, but then connect it to your business. Otherwise, you're just known as being entertaining, but it doesn't help you if people don't see the connection with your business. Show your audience why you are the right person to give them what they're looking for. I love to entertain my audiences with infomercials and little speeches. I get requests, but since this is a business and not Comedy Central, I always make sure, that I connect my story to what I'm selling. Here's an audience favorite, complete with the sides and stage directions. I have just been named, get this, North America's public speaking. Let me start again because, I have just been named North America's public speaking coach. I bow so the audience applauds. It's a very great honor. Admittedly, the panel of judges was a little teeny weeny bit small, just me and my mom. Nah, who am I kidding? She doesn't think I'm that good. Pretty much just me. But it's still a great honor. I'm Tsufit of Follow That Dream. I coach entrepreneurs and keynote speakers to be spectacular every time they open their mouths in public. Tsufit for when you're ready to get noticed. I've done this hundreds of times, always effective, and people come up to me afterwards and say, people who've seen me for a long time and come up and say, okay, Tsufit, I'm ready to get noticed. In fact, when I was doing this at live events, I would say Tsufit for when you're ready, and I would just stop, and the audience would say to get noticed because they were so used to it. Now, my infomercials are a little over the top for a lot of business owners, but remember, this is a public persona that works for me. Go back to chapter 3 and find the authentic public persona that works for you, that works for your business. But in case you still doubt the whole all business is show business theory, let me tell you that every single one of my infomercials has brought me clients, every single one of them. People whom I met for the first time that day when they heard them. And they'd also work on TV, they'd work in a written ad. Life is one big infomercial. Don't be waiting until you arrive at the business function to start worrying about what you're going to say. Be prepared. Have a whole wardrobe of infomercials. I put them on little 4x6 index cards in a little recipe box And I just pull one out that morning and say, which one am I going to do today? The best time to write them is when you are inspired. In the tradition of the great authors and great inventors, I compose a lot of my masterpieces in the car, at red lights, in the bathtub, or during my during my sleep, while I'm sleeping. Okay, let's leave it there for today. Today we have been reading Chapter 4, Part 6, I believe, of Step into the Spotlight. I'm ending this on page 142, and next time we will take it further. Now, was this Part 6 or Part 7? Yeah, I think it was Part 6. I think so. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. We're leaving it on page 142, and we'll pick it up there. If you want to get your own copy so you can follow along, you can see how to do that in the show notes. If you want to get a case of 20 to give them to your employees, your suppliers, your friends, you can see how to do that as well. This is Tsufit, and I will see you where? In the spotlight.